Can you hear those birds? We have some birds that are flocking and around over here by our 4Runner collection. But one of the things I was going to jump in here real quick for some of you is to talk about some of the cars that we have owned in our past. As you see, we have our 87 4Runner here, 97 4Runner there. Some of you have asked if we bought this new in 87. No. In 87, that would have been probably before I could even drive. But I bought this in 97. But some of you were asking about that you would like to know some of my automotive history. So let me begin while we're talking about Toyotas, because actually, I shouldn't say my first car was a Toyota, but my first operating car was a Toyota, a 1978 Toyota Corolla, 4-speed. No, it was a 5-speed. And it was bequeathed to me by my sister and her husband, who had no more use for it. It was actually the car that I learned how to drive a stick shift on prior to my ownership, so that was pretty cool. In any case, it was not my very first car that I owned. Now, when I say I owned it, that doesn't mean that I had actual title to it, because that was before I was an adult. So my dad had title to the cars that I had. So when I consider the cars that I've owned, which there have been about 34 cars, I think is what my last tally, after I went back through and figured out what my ownership history was on those. But the very first car that I ever had possessed was, get this, a 1965 Chevrolet Corvair. Okay, coupe, 2-door, automatic, 2-speed automatic. The problem with it was not operating when I bought it. And we got that one in about, I'd say probably around 1987. So it was already 22 years old when we got it. Was not working, needed some work. So it was a project when we bought it, which seems like a really good idea, to get a young person a project car so they can work to get it going and to be able to actually enjoy driving a car that they've worked on, especially one that's a classic basically already, and one that not many people have. In fact, back then it was more of a unicorn, because the Corvair had gotten a bad name, and everybody, mostly in the public, had just given up on them. And so you did not see them around much. Nowadays you see more of them coming back out. But so did never get that one running, but that was my very first car that I owned. Tinkered around with it, didn't know what I was doing. And as you know, usually project cars come in not working, and they leave probably not working or barely working from the ownership. This car here actually turned into a project, because we drove it sort of to where it would no longer start, had some issues because we were not maintaining it as well as we could have been. And as you know, these Toyotas will keep going forever, even when there's no maintenance. But at 312,000 miles, it finally decided it was done starting at times, and also it had a little bit of the death wobble going on in the front end, so to speak. Still drivable, but so issues and problems. We got another car, and it became a car that just ran when parked, so to speak, like they say on these ads for project cars. So in any case, now you know at least my first two cars, and we'll continue this discussion as we go, talking about car ownership and my history of cars. Someday I'll go through the whole litany, and we can see the trend of how my ownership of cars sort of weaved its way through to the current day where we have basically, what, 3 Toyotas and a Chevy square body. So 2 4Runners, a Sienna minivan, and a Chevy C10 Silverado square body. So stay tuned. Check in again here for the next installment on what cars have you owned on Driving It Home. See you next time. Don't forget to subscribe.